Hello everyone, and welcome to part 1 of this The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past No Major Glitches, No Save and Quit speedrun tutorial, also known as ALTTP NMG. In this series we will look at each major split of the ALTTP NMG speedrun and break it down in an episodic format for easier viewing and segment practice. I want to give a quick shout out to Hacksaw for helping me with this series and generally being an awesome dude. A link to his Twitch channel is in the description below. Pop by and show him some support by following him on Twitch. Before we get into any of the speedrun though, we need to go through some of the basics. In this video, we will cover game setup, which will talk about timers, consoles, emulators, and movement tech, so that you have something to practice before we get started with the meat and potatoes of the speedrun. So first things first, if you want to learn the speedrun for fun, like many of us, an emulator and a keyboard is really all you need to get started. If you want to be competitive, I strongly suggest moving to a SNES controller with a Mayflash on emulator, or using the original hardware. If you do end up using an original Super Nintendo, you will need a Japanese 1.0 Zelda cartridge, an EverDrive, or an FX Pack Pro formerly known as SD to SNES. If you do want to go the console route, it is overall faster than the emulator, about 8 seconds give or take. In this video that's playing right now, you can actually see the difference side by side for console versus emulator. With emulator being on the left and console being on the right, you can see that the credits are actually catching up on the console. If you don't care about those 8 seconds, by all means use an emulator. Some of the pros of using the original console is that it is overall faster, as we've said. Inputs do not get dropped, and timing is far more consistent. The cons? It's expensive, especially if you want to stream/record your runs for review, which I highly recommend. But you don't really get any save states for practice. However, you can use the practice hack for that, and that is highly recommended no matter what you use. So let's move on to timers. Most runners will use a program called LiveSplit, link below. And it's pretty easy to set up and use. You can use whatever timer program you wish. For stream I use WSplit, and for runs I use LiveSplit. Shown here is a quick overview of how LiveSplit looks, and how easily you can customize your splits. You can call each segment whatever you want, and you can add splits for item collection if you find you keep forgetting to pick up items in your runs. I've done this for the Ice Rod, where I simply forget to pick it up and don't realize until I get to Turtle Rock where it's used. If you want me to go into more depth on LiveSplit or WSplit, please leave a comment below, and I'll do what I can to put together a more detailed video on timers. Okay, let's get into it. Before we can start the run, we need to cover some of the game's mechanics so that we can jump right into the run. First, we need to cover something important. Super Nintendo games generally run at 60 frames per second. That's all for now. It becomes important later, just remember, 60 frames per second. So let's get into the movement tech. The walking pattern is important to note since it will be helpful at the start of the run. Link moves 90 pixels per second. This is due to Link's movement, which varies based on directionality. When traveling up or left, Link moves 2 pixels per frame, then 1, then 2, and repeat. When moving right or down, Link moves 1 pixel per frame, then 2, then 1, and repeat. This pattern is important for a technique called pumping. When walking around without boots, we can speed up Link's movement in the up or left directions, and we do this by pushing the up or down directions when moving left, and the left and right directions when moving up. We usually do this while up against a wall, which resets Link's walking animation and forces the pattern to reset, which in theory allows us to go 2 pixels every frame, assuming perfect pumping. Doing this technique while walking right or down will slow us down, since the first frame in Link's movement is 1 pixel, so we will reset his movement to 1 pixel instead of 2. Stair lag is a term used to talk about the spiral staircases we encounter in the game. There are a lot of them. By pressing down out of a spiral staircase, we move slower. To counter this, simply press left or right when exiting the stairs and you will cancel this lag. Holding left or right when you exit the staircase is the optimal strategy, that way you get first frame movement. When talking about sword tech, there are 3 types of damage we can do: a slash, a spin, and a poke. A slash is when we simply press the attack button, B, on the SNES. The animation for this is 15 frames, and while slashing, Link can't move. That is why we only kill enemies when we absolutely have to. Attacking is almost always slower than simply avoiding the enemies. Spamming the attack button is almost always a bad idea since Link can't change direction if you need to adjust for an approaching enemy. Spins do have a larger area of attack than the slash. A spin is performed by holding the B button until we hear the noise for the sword being charged. A A spin will lock Link in place the same way a slash does. Spins will also do more damage than a slash. It does 2 times the damage of your sword you're using. This is true for all swords except for Gold Sword, which does the same damage as the slash. On the other side we have the poke. This will do half the damage of the sword slash. The exception to this is the fighter's sword, the first sword, as it will do the same damage as the slash. If your goal is to poke the enemy, you can hold out your sword the same way you do to charge your sword, and keep the button pressed while you make contact with the enemy. Note that your movement speed is slower while holding out your sword. One of the last things we talk about here is boots. We collect boots early on in the game, and they are used in a lot of different techniques. We will discuss a few of them here, but go into more depth when it becomes relevant for the run. It is important to remember something about boots. Charging a dash takes 30 frames. That means when moving a distance of 4 tiles or more, boots are more effective than walking. Anything under this distance is faster by walking. So let's do some quick math. A tile is an area of 16 by 16 pixels, so 16 times 4 is 64 pixels. If Link moves 90 pixels per second when walking, it takes roughly 0.6 seconds to clear 4 tiles by walking. With boots, Link's run speed is 4 pixels per second, but the boots take 30 frames to charge. That's half a second. To go 64 pixels, it takes Link roughly 0.2 seconds to cover 4 tiles with a dash. But when you factor in charge time, it takes Link 0.7 seconds to run 4 tiles. If something is 5 tiles away, you are almost always going to be faster dashing, if you can start your dash right away. If you are slow starting your dash, it'll likely come out to even with walking, especially if you are pumping while walking, wherever applicable. The most important speed tech that you need to get used to is quick hop and spin speed. One quick note, spin speed is a Japanese 1.0 exclusive glitch, which is one of the many reasons we use this specific version of the game. To perform the spin speed glitch, you need to charge your sword spin, release it and press A, the boots button, 1 frame after you release your spin. The simplest way of doing this on a controller is simply rolling your thumb from B to A, or whatever keys you have mapped for this. If done correctly, you will have lost the ability to swing your sword. This is the first part of the glitch. The second part requires a manual staircase. Manual staircases are where the game does not automatically move you from the top to the bottom or bottom to the top. Once you touch the manual stairs, you can move freely at dash speed without having to recharge dash to change directions. When hopping off of a ledge, Link pauses for 12 frames. If you press the dash button and the direction button at the same time at a ledge, Link will jump immediately. This will save many frames and add up to several seconds over the course of the run. One thing to keep in mind is jumping over a north-facing ledge. For some reason, Link will grab the ledge when facing north. Make sure you're walking either diagonally, facing left or right, when doing a north-facing quick hop. Either hold out your sword and move straight up, or move to the left or right and then transition into a diagonal. We will cover quick hopping in more depth as it becomes relevant to the run. When dashing, remember that if you are running towards a wall, you will need to cancel your dash by pressing any direction other than the direction you are dashing to cancel the dash. If you don't, you will bonk, and bonks slow you down. Poke dashing is an important piece of tech as it will allow you to poke an enemy for full sword slash damage. This is a good skill to practice as it is important later on in the run. As your sword hits the enemy, press the dash button and the sword will not retract. If you kill an enemy with your dash attack, they will never drop an item. This is important to note as this is useful to preserve certain enemy drops for later on in the run. More on drop packs will be explained in the run as they become relevant. This is really all you need to know to get started. Make sure you practice the techniques here as they will help you to save those precious frames as you progress through the run. Mastery of these skills is vital for your success in runs down the line. In the next video, we're going to cover the first split of the game, Hyrule Castle. In this video, we're going to cover topics like button mashing, LR buttons and what they do, room optimization, RNG. It's just going to be a fun-filled episode full of Hyrule Castle-iness. And there will be pumping. Oh, you better believe there's going to be pumping. Like, to walk faster. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please comment. If you have any other suggestions for topics you'd like me to cover, please comment that below as well. And also don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button. It'll help me out a lot. See you all in the next video.